Thank you all for coming, and we do have a quorum, so we're going to begin business. And before we start with our presenter today, I would like to introduce our Robin Underwood, who is with our fiscal office. And Robin, I think you have something maybe for us to look over in light of what we do, what we're about. And Robin is going to present to us in the next 2 weeks, not next week because we have a short week, but the following week.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I'm passing out, I think you have it.
I do. Mm-hmm.
It's the January reports that we present to the chairman. We present these reports each month. What they represent is a ranking report that shows the number of committee days that have been paid during the month, with highest to the lowest, and then a detailed report of all expenses paid to each member for the month of January. If you'll notice on the report, especially the detailed one, it shows the current month, and then it shows the calendar year to date. I just want to say one thing when you're reviewing these reports before we discuss them. Our office, all the reports are driven by the date paid and not necessarily what it represents in time frame. In other words, since we have a lag time to claim everything, if someone waits until January to claim for the year before, it could shoot them to the top of the ranking report when in fact they may not be at the top. So keep that in mind when you're reviewing, and then when I come back in a couple of weeks, if you have any questions, we'll get to the detail.
Thank you so much. We
One quick question. Committee days do not include committee of one days there.
They do.
They do include
Not
committee of
include
one.
session, but it includes everything else.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate it. Just quickly, those members or those people that are visiting today, would you like to introduce yourselves, and would you like for us to introduce ourselves to you? Let me start over here with Representative Chokas.
Oh, thank you.
Just as quickly as we can, because we don't want to take time away from our presenter.
I'm Mike Chokas, District 138. Serve on this and 6 other committees, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chuck Williams, District 119, Athens, Clark, Oconee.
Representative Dexter Sharper, District 177, Valdosta, Georgia area. Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone in the audience would like to introduce yourself? And
I'm Joe RJR Capital.
great. Thank you for being here. Wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful. We're delighted to have you, and you're going to be able to hear our new commissioner give a report to us. We're thrilled to have you. Thank you so much. You may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. So what I will try to do is quickly go through an overview of sort of the responsibilities of the Department of Audits and Accounts. I won't inundate you with all this information, but I did want to also, towards the end of this, bring to your attention some of the reports that we issue and where you might find information of significance to your particular jurisdictions. And then I'm going to ask, with me today is Lisa Kiefer. She's our Deputy Director in our Performance Audit Group. And I'm going to ask Lisa to provide an overview of the performance audits that have been released over the last 6 to 10 months, and with emphasis on some of the recommendations that are relevant to the legislature. So with that, you should have in front of you a handout that I'll kind of walk through again quickly. Please stop me if you have any questions. On page 1, the second slide, real at a high level, it's our deliverables. It's a snapshot of our deliverables that were issued in not fiscal year, but actually calendar year 12. So you can see, sort of reading left to right, the department issued 335 financial statement reports. Those are financial audits, both from the state government division and also from the education audit division. We issued about 69 nursing home cost reports that we do under contract for the Department of Community Health. Moving over to the right, you'll see a number of 742 and 487. Those are the number of local and non-profit organizations and financial reports that are sent to us. We do desk reviews of their audits every year, and so we've got a division that does nothing but reviews the audits of the local and nonprofit audits that are done. Moving to the next page, so page 2 at the top, a slide on who we are. We've got an outstanding staff that's very dedicated to the work they do. Most and many of the folks in the organization have some sort of professional designation, which you can see here. We've got on staff now, we're about 270 fully staffed. Of that number, 78 are CPAs. 7 of those are certified internal auditors. We've got 30 certified fraud examiners on board. We've got certified information system auditors, and then you can see the other designations there. And then we've got 77 professionals that have advanced degrees, and many of the folks in the organization hold more than one of these designations. So they may have a CPA. They also may have a certified fraud examiner's designation as well. Down towards the bottom on page 2 is how the department is structured currently. We have 10 areas of operations, and I'll go in the following slides. I'll go through again at a high level what each one of those divisions what they do. And so again, 10 divisions, if you will, within the department. Moving to page 3 at the top, and we'll go division by division. Please stop me if you have any questions. The state government division has about 50 folks in that division currently. They serve as the principal auditor for the main state financial reports, the CAFR, which is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which I'm going to share a copy of that with you. The BCR, which is the state's budgetary compliance report. That's a report where the agencies show their performance on a program-based budgeting perspective. And then we also audit the single audit report. So we audit these reports. They're prepared by the state accounting office with significant input from the agencies across the state. The Education Audit Division has about 95 members in that group currently, and they audit the local boards of education. We currently audit about 160 of the 180 local boards of education, and that group also audits the colleges and universities as part of the CAFR preparation. So they, during the fall, if you will, they're working on colleges, universities, the technical college system to support the audit work for the CAFR. And then from January till it's been about August, for about 8 months, they're working on local school board audits. And again, we currently audit about 160. Given our staff, we're able to get to 160 and get them out to. Some of them are, the timing of those are a little longer than I would like, but again, where we are currently with the staff, we're getting to the 160. Down on the bottom of page 3, the Performance Audit Division. Again, Lisa's going to talk a little bit about that. We identify performance audits in a couple ways. One is in the May time frame, we get a list of requests from both the House Budget Office and the Senate Budget Office, it's right now, I think the list is about 5 on each, and they ask us to go do some special examinations. And we do that from June till December, January timeframe. And so we try to get those reports out prior to the session starting so that you have those and can take a look at those. From January to the May-June timeframe, we are doing performance audits on topics that the staff identifies as key areas that we should look at across the state. And they've got the division has a list of priorities and that we evaluate every year, and every year they go through a very strategic process in identifying which areas to audit every year, and Lisa can speak to that, I think, if we have time. But and then we work on those audits again from January till June, generally. The healthcare audit division, again, a lot of the work they do is basically under contract with the Department of Community Health in the Medicaid area. We do a lot of nursing home audits and then some claims audits as well with respect to the dental work across the state. The next division there on your list is the Technology Risk and Assurance Group. That is our IT auditing group. They go in and audit various systems across the state. The key systems that, again, we look at to support getting an opinion, if you will, on the CAFR. So when we look at all the systems, we look at the key systems to support the financial statements that are in the CAFR. So we do look at some of the Board of Regents systems, the statewide accounting system, the PeopleSoft system that's managed out of the SAO, and a number of other significant systems. Any questions on?
Are there?
I know I'm going pretty quick.
Well,
so
no, that's really good. Does anyone have a question thus far?
I got a couple of them.
Okay. Let's do that, since there are 2 people that have to leave for other meetings, so that would be good.
The first one is, you mentioned earlier the Education Audit Division that you do 160 of the 180 local boards. Why are the other 20 not in your system?
We don't have staff to do all of them, and the ones that we don't do, we basically say we can't do those. They have requirements that we can't meet. For example, they might need to issue bonds in the fall, and in the fall we're working on the colleges and the technical schools and those types of things. So it's some of the larger education systems in the state, generally the metro area. So I think it's a Gwinnett County, a Cobb County, those folks.
Gotcha. All right, and then the second question, I think we're taking up so much of your time. Could you explain the technology risk and assurance? Go over that again. That was the one you just completed. Now, you audit the technology systems that different departments handle?
We look at the key systems that support the financial statements, that generate information or reports that roll up into the statewide CAFR. We do that. We do an evaluation to determine how much reliance we can put on the systems. What are their internal controls? Do they have access controls that we can rely on to prevent folks from unauthorized access into the system? The more we can rely on those types of controls, the less testing that the financial auditors have to do when they actually go on site and go into an agency.
So this is more of a performance audit rather than the cost of the system.
It's part of the financial audit. It's not. It's again, we look at, it's controls based, risk based, and it ultimately, if those systems are effective and the controls are in place, we can do less testing on the financial audit side. So there's an efficiency issue here to the extent we can get those systems to be in a way where we can rely on them. It reduces the number of staff hours over here in the state government division and the EAD division, if you will.
Thank you.
Greg, sort of follow up, those school systems that you don't audit due to your staffing issues and or their complexity, who does audit them? Are they required to use some other resource, or how does that play out?
I believe they issue RFPs and hire outside external firms. Other external firms, because in effect, we're really an external firm to them, and an independent firm. Even though we're part of the state, we're an independent audit firm.
Thank you.
Are there any other?
I do
Okay.
have a question on the healthcare audits. Do you actually, so you audit DCH, correct?
We do not. We audit providers. So we look at nursing homes, and from those reports help or make recommendations, I believe, to DCH in terms of setting cost rates. We audit dental claims as well, but we do not audit the Department of Community Health. That is one of the agencies that we do not audit. It is done by another independent firm.
Okay.
And we, over the years, we've been determined not to be independent of that agency. My predecessor's wife used to work there, and
Oh, I remember having this conversation with you last week.
so we don't. There are a number of agencies across the state that we don't audit. That's one of them. And then I sit on a number of boards across the state, and any authority or agency that I sit on as a board, I'm not independent to do that audit, and so we have an outside firm perform those audits.
Anyone else? All right.
All right, page 4 at the top, the nonprofit and local government division. Again, they're the ones that do the desk reviews on all the local, the city and county financial audits. This group also is the drivers of the local government noncompliance report, which I'm going to walk through pretty quick here in a minute. A lot of things fall into that group. Again, they look at the nonprofits. A couple of things that you don't see here. We are responsible for the HB 87, or the immigration compliance rules, and so we have about 2,300 local entities that report to us annually, and that group is also responsible for tracking that and issuing noncompliance reports. We work pretty closely with the Department of Community Affairs with that. The sales ratio division, as you see there, they prepare the statewide equalized adjusted property tax digest. So that is done annually, and that is an input to the QBE formula calculation every year. That is a staff of about 18 and is made up primarily of real estate appraisers. So if we have any real detailed questions about what goes on there, I'll have to bring that director in and have him respond directly to the questions.
Yeah.
Are those real estate appraisals always sober when they perform their jobs?
I'm going to defer that one. That group works very closely with the Department of Revenue, again, in issuing that document, which again becomes an input to the QBE calculation. We've got a fourth bullet on the list is our Office of Quality Assurance, and that group is basically our QA group. It's a small group. It makes sure it sets the standards for the organization. Any CPA firm has a quality assurance group. They perform independent reviews of our own work and ensure that we are independent and that we can say we're independent. And annually, you may or may not know, we have a outside peer review done. So we always get the question, who audits the auditors? So we do it internally through our Office of Quality Assurance, but we also required to have a peer review every 3 years, and our next peer review will be based on fiscal year 13, but it'll occur in fiscal year 14. And we have passed the last couple of peer reviews with flying colors. So, last on the list there is our administrative and IT divisions. Those are two separate divisions. Again, that's our, if you're a corporate support group, our accounting, HR, procurement, and then our IT group as well. Let's see, I talked about HB 87. The only other thing I think that's not on this list that we do is that you may be familiar with is the Open Georgia website, the transparency website, where we post all of the travel, the salary, and travel information for all the entities across the state. Payments and obligations as well go up on that website.
Tell us, can you give us that website exact?
Oh, do you know what it is?
I believe it's open.georgia spelled out.
Georgia spelled out .com.
.gov.
Gov, I meant .gov, okay. Thank you. Okay.
And next page, again, some reports of interest. Now, we can pass these around. We print a limited copy of these. We don't print a lot. We don't do a lot of printing anymore. But this first report is the state's comprehensive annual report. So this first report, again, is our annual report. So if we were a private industry, you had stock and owned stock in that company, you would get an annual report. This is pretty much very similar to, it's a consolidated financial statement of the state. I should step back and mention the state keeps books on 3 separate bases of accounting. So there's a budgetary set of books, there's a governmental set of books, and then there is a full accrual set of books, which the CAFR, if you will, is the full accrual set of books. So this is like, again, private industries keeping their books on the same basis of accounting.
All right, we're a little confused on which book.
Okay,
so
this is the comprehensive annual financial report. Some of you have a budget book, and some of you have a single audit report. So this is I brought 2 copies of each.
Okay, so we can share.
That's again, the comprehensive annual report. The blue book, if you will, is the budgetary compliance report. So this has every agency financial statements and activity for fiscal year 12 on the program-based budgeting approach. So you can go for those agencies in your particular area. You can go see how well they did relative to budget and their program spend. And then the last report here this is the single audit report, and the one you have in front of you is the 2011 report. The 2012 report is due out at the end of this month in February. The key information in here is findings that occur as a result of the audits that we do are all summarized and included in this single audit report. And then with this are the responses, the corrective action plans that the agency specifies how they're going to address those findings. So, and again, that's by agency as well. So you will find that of some interest.
You have a question now. We have one question, I believe, now before our 2. Actually, we have 2 questions before our people that have to leave for another meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Greg, you mentioned that you sit on a number of boards statewide, and that basically prohibits your agency from auditing those. I assume that's in the official scope of your business.
Yes.
But is that, again, I don't know what those boards are. Is that impeding the state's ability to do its work? You sitting on those boards, or is it a necessary evil, or what?
It does not impede us doing the work. Again, the state doing this work, because we can rely on the work that those other auditing firms do. The primary boards I sit on are the ERS and TRS boards. There's a Big 4 firm that does that audit, and so
okay.
And that's a specialized area, so that is not impeding.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Representative. You mentioned the education audits earlier, and I'm just using that as an example, but several of the different departments and agencies have some carry forward legislation where there's monies that are not spent and carried forward to the next year, do you perform audits on those funds?
Yes, we do. So the carry forward amounts, which again you can see in the budget, we look at again the current year activity, and then amounts that are reserved and brought forward are part of the audit. The process today is that the agencies, particularly for the state funds, request the funds to be reserved. They send that letter to OPB. OPB first waves their hand across that to say yes, and then we look at it from the legislative side and say yes as well. So there's two looks at those reserves.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Follow up, please.
Sure.
Greg, I got one more observation on I guess the submission of different audits when we put on local governments. It looks like the very first one, Andersonville, is in my district.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here. All right.
So each of you do have our non-compliance local government report that Chairman Choke has mentioned last time. So you do have that, and you can see what cities and county governments are in non-compliance, and we issue this report generally about every 6 months.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue. Would you please?
Okay. Let's see, technology, and that's really it. The
Yeah.
last couple of slides are just some takeaways you can take back with you. And
So we have Lisa now, who is going to address the performance audits. Thank you, Lisa, for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Yes, if you will.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just keep this book. We can keep them in mind.
So I wanted to share with you some of the information on our most recent reports, as well as some recommendations that we thought might be of particular interest to you because they were directed to the General Assembly. I have two spreadsheets that I can share with you. The legal size sheet here is follow-up reviews that we've conducted, which I'll explain in just a second. But this is recommendations that we made, and we have and we have checked back with the agencies to find out if they've been implemented, and they've not. And these recommendations were included in those reports, but they were directed specifically at the General Assembly.
Okay.
Thanks. When we conduct performance audits, generally we are making recommendations to the agency because the audits are normally of a operational nature. And so our recommendations are focused on things that they can do to improve their operations and improve their effectiveness and efficiency. When we see situations that the General Assembly's help is needed in the way of a law change, something of that nature, then we'll address the recommendations specifically to the General Assembly. So after the reports are released, about 2 years later, we go back and conduct what we call a follow-up review. And at that time, we look to see what action has been taken on each of those recommendations. And so that first legal size sheet is the results of follow-ups that we did in 2011 and 2012 that included recommendations that were directed to the General Assembly, but action hadn't been taken on those.
No action, am I to understand you clearly,
Yes,
has been
ma'am.
taken on the 2011 follow-up reviews. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. On the recommendations that were included in those reports. The other sheet that I just handed out to you is more recent reports that were released that we haven't followed up on yet. So these are more current recommendations. And so, for example, the home and community-based services and driver's records reports, those were just released in calendar year 2012. But again, these were recommendations that were directed to the General Assembly. It was deemed that their action was necessary in order to precipitate the change. Both of these documents I can get to you electronically if you would prefer. The other thing that I have, and I can pass this document around, but my understanding was that you were interested in the 2012 reports that we had released and sort of a summary
Right,
of those
yes,
reports.
uh-huh.
And so what we have is this is just one document, and again, it's something that we can get to electronically if you're interested in having it that way. It's a compilation of all of the executive summaries from the reports that we released in 2012 and in 2011. The executive summaries contain the high-level information, hopefully the most important information, and give you kind of an overview of what the report is. And then in the electronic copy of that, you can click on the title of the report from the executive summary and get to the report itself, to the whole report itself.
So you can send that to us electronically, is that what you're...
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am. It also has a website.
It does.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, Lisa, please continue.
So I'm happy to go through the 2012 reports and give you a brief overview of each of those, if
Why
that's
don't
what
you
would
just
like.
highlight some to give us a capsule
Okay.
of what you, maybe, I don't know if we have anything we could follow along, but you can explain.
Okay. There are a couple that I would highlight in the performance audits. As Greg mentioned, the performance audits are the topics that we've selected internally. And last year we released one on home and community-based services for the elderly and the physically disabled. And in that one, what we found was that the program CCSP is run by DHS, and it is the program that's created in statute to provide these services, and they have a responsibility to provide information to the legislature on the services that are provided. But it's not the biggest one anymore, and it's not the only one anymore, and so there is an opportunity, I think, for consideration to be given to combining those two programs. SOURCE is the other program that operates, and it is much larger, and it was designed, I believe, as a pilot of sorts to see if kind of enhanced case management would improve the services that were provided to this population. And at some point it was decided that it was no longer a pilot and it became a program, but it wasn't really merged with the CCSP program. The only difference between the two, as I understand it, is that SOURCE clients have to be SSI eligible, and that's potentially an issue that could be managed through eligibility determinations. And that's the home and community-based services report. Another report that may be of interest to you all is the driver records report. There was a recommendation in that one that the General Assembly consider revising state law to ensure that the administrative license suspensions for how DUIs are tracked is in line with federal regulations. Currently under state law, DDS isn't required to track those in the way that the federal government is now saying that they want them tracked. And as a result, they've been cited in reviews for not doing that and told that they risk highway funds if they don't correct it. But if they correct it, then they're not in compliance with state law. So they're in a bit of a pickle.
Oh, do you have a solution for that in any of these pages?
The recommendation is to take a look at that, and I think probably to discuss with DDS the best way to either rewrite the legislation or the statute to allow for that, or what the implications are if it's not done. The rest of the performance audits focused largely on operational issues within the agencies. So while we think they're very interesting, I don't know if they have specific recommendations to the legislature.
Okay.
I would say that in some ways, even if there aren't recommendations specific to the legislature, where the legislature is of assistance is if you all have reviewed the reports and are concerned about the recommendations. We don't have enforcement authority over the agencies. We did go back and look 2 years later to see if they've been implemented, but we don't have enforcement authority.
That's historically, I mean, has there ever been a question about your having that authority?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Any questions? Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right here, I'm seeing on the 2011 follow-up reviews, right? And you have the original findings and recommendations. And the original reviews are like 2008, and then you have 3 years later, and then you have one that's like 2011, and you're looking at the follow-up dates. Now, what would you say on the percentage-wise? I see a lot of these are not implement, basically, the recommendation on the follow-up. What percentage do you think they are actually making the recommendation, going with your recommendation?
We track their implementation, and I believe we're running about 75% implementation on the recommendations that we've made. And that includes things that they are in process on, that they have plans to do, and also things that they've fully implemented, the recommendation that we made.
Okay, and most things are done, I guess, if you can, done every 2 years on the checking at the status of the recommendations.
Yes, sir. The difference in the dates may be that the agency was in the middle of a federal review and we didn't go in at the exact point to do the review. So yes, it is approximately 2 years, 18 months to 2 years is what we try to target.
And the last little part of that is, where do you think realistically, are you happy with 75% success, or I know you want to be 100%, but what is livable, I guess, for percentage of success?
I think we viewed the 75% as a positive. We feel like it's representative of our ability to work with the agencies and make them understand why the recommendations that we're making are valid recommendations. Obviously, we'd like to have it higher.
Thank you.
In the special examinations that we issued in 2012, a couple that may be of particular interest, the Georgia Trauma Care Network. What we found is that progress has been made in that particular area. The number of designated trauma centers has gone up from 15 in 2007 to 21 in 2012. The percentage of trauma patients that were served in a trauma center has also increased. We did find that there's still some gaps, and particularly in South Georgia, where and we included some suggestions and recommendations on how that might be addressed. What we did find is that work is hampered to a degree by the lack of a lead agency on this, and currently there are 2 entities that have responsibilities related to the trauma system, but there's no clear delineation of authority or powers between those 2. So any coordination between them is dependent on their goodwill and their interest in that. And what we saw is that their perspectives are different, and in some cases rightfully so. But because of that, you don't have a forced coordination of any sort. So we recommended that establishing a lead agency should allow for a more coordinated system of planning and regulation and data sharing. The other project under the special exams that may be of interest to you all is the Governor's Office of Children and Families. In that one, there were some problems identified with the retention of unspent funds and how funds were accounted for. And what we were finding is that the Governor's Office of Children and Families is an organization that was created through the merger of the Children's Trust Fund Commission and the Children and Youth Coordinating Council. The Children's Trust Fund Commission has the authority to lapse funds, and so if monies are designated specifically for them, then those funds may lapse. But funds that are not designated specifically for them are supposed to lapse and be returned to the general fund. And so our recommendation on that one was that the General Assembly specify in the Appropriations Act when funds are designated for the Children's Trust Fund portion of that specifically. And if the General Assembly has any concerns about the way the definitions are being applied to the other services that are being provided, whether they are neglect and abuse prevention services, that may need to be clarified as well. So those are probably the 4 reports that I would highlight for your attention. The other ones, State Properties Commission and the Georgia State Financing Investment Commission, State Prisons and Shines, I'll provide good information on those areas and those programs if you are so interested. I'd bring your attention to 2 other reports that are scheduled for follow-up in 2011. I think we've actually sent the follow-up letters, I believe, on one of these, and are planning to send it on the next one, so they're about to get underway. And that's the Georgia State Patrol audit. And the recommendations in that report are directed primarily at the agency, but it's a fairly significant expenditure of state funds there, and it does impact local government law enforcement operations and the public. And so I think you all would potentially be interested in those recommendations. And the Public Defender Standards Council, in that report we were looking at whether people were receiving services who were over the income limit, and we didn't find that there were a lot of people who appeared to be receiving services but were over the income limit. But what we did find was that about a third of the time the documentation that was provided wasn't sufficient to make that determination, so there was a risk. What we have found through the beginning of this follow-up process is it looks like the council has taken a lot of action to address those gaps, if you will, and so we're optimistic.
Any questions for Lisa? No? Anything further, Lisa?
We'll be happy to provide the hard copies of the reports as you requested, and we can do that by subcommittee and get them all to you. And we can do that for the 2012 reports. Is that what you?
Yes, that would be good. And let's go back over and just highlight the 4. I want to be sure everyone is familiar with the 4. The children and families, the funding, the unspent. That's kind of a question that we might be looking at. The Georgia trauma, you've highlighted.
Yes.
The driver's record report. Yes. And then there was one more, and that was combining the source.
That was home and community-based services.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I just wanted everybody to sort of be looking at those.
What's the first one? I'm sorry.
Home.
The Governor's Office of Children and Families.
Georgia trauma was next, and then the third one was
the driver records report.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, are there any people that are here that would like to make comments, or do you have anything you would like to bring before this committee? Anyone in the audience? No? Well, we so thank you for coming and presenting. We may have to have you back several more times in order to fully understand the great work that you do, and we appreciate you. I know that we would also like, if it is at all possible, to maybe come and visit with your office and take a little tour and see all of you at work. If that would, I believe it would be beneficial for us if it would not inconvenience you all. Okay? Well, thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Would you prefer that these books go back with you, or these are?
You can keep those if you'd like.
Very good. Very good.
I'll take them back if you don't want them.
Okay. Thank you. I think we will share these.
Could you keep them as chairs?
Yes, I will. Yes, they can be in my office. Yes.
And all those reports are online.
Okay.
Yeah, they are online. It's just sometimes it's just a lot easier
No, I understand.
to put your hand on it. But we thank you so much. We appreciate your service and appreciate your coming to present to us.
Thank you.
Thank you, members of the committee, for
Thank you, Madam
being
Chair.
here. Thank you.
I apologize for being late.
That's perfectly all right. And I mean, everybody's got other committees and other places to run. And
Lucky the next one's in here, so.
oh, aren't you lucky? Yes, you are. Mine's across the street. I do want to give you a current. Oh, by the way, those of you, well, I didn't even announce this, but Dexter is going to be the chair of the public safety for us, and Mike Chokus is going to be on his committee. Okay, so we're all moving. I want to give you this list. Oops.